Okay, the name of this stream video is Saddam Hussein and uh, the and actually I think I'm already confused. Um, the 1972 Olympics, because I'm in this era for research purposes. Um, Saddam Hussein, I should have I should have called it Saddam Hussein, Martin Luther King, and the PLO, Yasser Arafat. Uh, because these politics are PLO was organized or formed in 1964, the year I was born, and everybody says so. But if you've come up against as much opposition, and you can't figure out why in your life, and you're sort of forced to look back and not turn into a pillar of salt, because I think Christians like to anybody who's familiar with the verse um, about turning into a pillar of salt. Um, it has a different uh, perspective and interpretation of myself as a Christian, and I've sat in on disturbing conversations uh, within mixed uh, religious groups, including Muslims, Jews, Messianic Christians, and myself. And I feel like I'm the only Christian who has, other than my biological children, who has such a uh, unique and different perspective of things as a Christian. Um, the PLO and of course Martin Luther King's politics, the civil rights movement, um, have had an impact on my life in a very negative way. Neither one of these three leaders, uh, Saddam Hussein, Yasser Arafat, the organization of PLO, um, nor Martin Luther King, I don't fall under any of their um, boundaries of protection. And uh, it really explains a lot the further I research. And I came across and connected these dots before, but now it's a tighter knit connection, because I did not realize and hadn't remembered the the incidents of the 1972 Summer Olympics. Um, that there were hostages and whatnot. and several people killed at the 1972 Summer Olympics. And so, oddly, um, the medal that I um, one is the stories that I've told about my real time and uh, run or this guy Jim Marici, who claims to be a CIA agent, and really strange, a strange person in my experience with him. Um, the very personal lies that he told went around telling about me, like he's some kind of clown or something. And um, but the more disturbing part is that he may actually be a representative of the CIA. And the fact that I'm going to look up who the silver medalist uh, of the 1972 swimming competition. In other words, who won the silver medal as opposed to the gold, who Mark Spitz won the gold. Uh, part to refresh my own memory and to document in a more organized and compacted manner. The guy Jim Marici, he took me around town. Strange, I didn't understand it, but um, um, I found him to be a very irritating um, uh, person. And I think he was being such purposefully now. And McGee, at the 1972 Olympics, McGee garnered a second silver medal in men's 200-meter individual medley, again finishing behind the gold medalist Larson. I thought it was Mark Spitz. Maybe that was a different American Mark Spitz swims backstroke at the 1972 Munich Olympics, where he captured a then record 7 gold medals. The stars and stripes. So it must have been whoever this gold medalist Larson was. It must have been a different. Was maybe Mark Spitz was a diving competition. Anyway, the when Jim Marici was taking me around town, and uh, Jim Marici, I would say it has some kind of um, ethnic. I don't know if he's Egyptian or African American, or what his specific uh, cultural identification um, is, but honestly, he has a resemblance to like that baseball player, um, who I can't, Derek Jeter, without the blue eyes, um, and similarly complected, and similar soft curled hair. So whatever his ethnic lineage is, um, I think there was more to his locating me and escorting me around town, and I'm not saying in a good way. I was homeless at the time, and he supposedly was also. I don't believe that he was in retrospect. And he had all these sports connections, and he had a lot of grandiose stories and stuff like that. Um, but I just wasn't interested. I I'm not fame and fortune. He drives a Maserati, so gosh, I got to go get him. I'm not that type of woman. Um, and so all of his stories and whatever his connections or aliases or personas that he may have um in the sports world and been some champion after another. The point of the matter is that one of the places that we stopped was at this van, and there was a girl inside, and evidently he had already known her because I didn't know her. And it was an encounter that I was like puzzled by. And um I'm trying to make a long story short, because this isn't the main reason that I signed on for this particular video. The And I don't like the words I just used because of knowing what could be involved behind the scenes that I'm not conscious or real time aware of. Um, so the girl was living in the van. She had brown hair and brown eyes, and she had a really strong resemblance to my niece Abby, or what I could remember of my niece Abby. And my niece Abby had a strong resemblance to her grandmother, Marilyn Palacky, who had Maryland politics connections, like really tight. And so now there's the story is coming together, even more obvious as to why I have come up against so much opposition, and been um aside from my mental, physical, and emotional health, I've been immobilized. And that started back in 2005. Like, I now know without a shadow of a doubt that I was a main focus to be made to become homeless, to be made to become immobilized, like no transportation, no financial resources, um, no electronic device, and that um, was began in 2005 when I was residing at. I think it began before then, but the circle where it began back in 1964 was, and I was still a little target, and then the ripples started getting closer to me. um, the politics, the international politics, the ripples of the international politics and international economy, and international religious differences. And the the girl who looked like she was a hooker, living a hooker drug addict living in a van, and I was emotionally taken in because I was thinking to myself, I feel like this is my niece Abby, and I want to sit in with her to let her know that whatever family politics were going on, I have not a responsibility, but a concern for her as well. I have to, at this point, 2 or 3 years after this encounter, I have to distance myself because now the the politics and the religious and it is so very apparent right now that I don't think that me having concern for my niece Abby or my niece Caitlin or any of my nieces or my nephew at this point as strong as an emotional connection that I had to not so much my Henderson nieces because they were so different from me. Um, and there was a disconnect as far as as far as their dangerous connections that I was made aware of when they were very young. So I didn't allow myself to become emotionally connected to my Henderson nieces because there were obvious spoken about connections that my sister-in-law's family had that I didn't want to be a part of, and I didn't want my children. I wanted my children to not be a part of any of that. Unfortunately, things didn't go my way. Um, um, Back then or now, but now I have to draw the line with all of my nieces and nephews. um so as we sat in the van talking to her and the van door was open, it wasn't any kind of weird creepy except for she was living in the van. And she had a personality similar to what I remember. And again, I really didn't spend that much time around my niece Abby either. But this girl had a personality similar to what my niece Abby had, and still, when I think of my niece Abby, she she has a very likable personality, and but always very fragile and more real. I felt like, um, and still sort of feel like than an act. In other words, she didn't act like she was being, and she didn't act like she was frail, but she was frail, and she was, but she was it was or is a sort of strong personality. So I don't understand why, but again, I think it's a cultural difference thing in the way that um her culture deals with things differently than my culture. My culture, as in, I feel like I'm the only one who really has a more understanding of what being a Christian is actually about than anyone that I've met. Um, and my children, because they are of my womb, I know have a similar belief system that I have. However, they may have not been able to practice. um but back to uh the encounter with Jim Marici and this girl who I was, regardless of what she said her name was or how old she was, said she was, in my mind, I'm thinking this is my niece Abby, and it's bothering me a bit that my niece Abby is living in a van, and and doesn't bother me as much as to think of my own daughter in such a situation, but still bothered me. And so she had a lot of stuff, and she had trinkets, and her van was decorated very girly and everything. That's kind of beside the point, except for whatever reason we only sat there for like 15 minutes, and she started digging through her belongings, like she and showing me stuff, and she handed me this uh coin that was about this big, and it said it silver medal Olympics, and it had a guy swimming on it. So whether it was an actual silver medal, because it was small, and when I look at pictures, like what I was just looking at, the medals are look bigger than what this particular coin was. It was bigger than a coin, but like I would say it was even bigger than like a like an old silver dollar. But the point is what the coin said on it, and that was something about the Olympics. And I can it must have said 1972, because I remember looking it up and the name Mark Spitz being associated with the different medals that I had found online. So still, I didn't put or any connections, because I was like, okay, Mark Spitz, I remember that name. I remember, um, it- I'm 8 years old in 1972, and so I remember the name Mark Spitz. What's disturbing to me today? Oh, and so she handed me that coin, and she handed me a unicorn, um, like brooch pendant, very gaudy looking, but very, very much not something I would wear. It was, to me, it looked like real gold and pink stones, pink, and possibly some diamonds. I don't know, but it was a unicorn. It was about this big. And I've told this story before, and it's a true story. And I was like, no, I can't accept this, because I thought to me it looked like real gold and real gemstones, whatever a pink gemstone is, I don't know. And then the metal looked like real solid silver. And I said, no, I can't accept this. And she said, yes, please take it, please take it, please take it. And so I accepted it, and like a few weeks later, and I kept it, and it was in the backpack that was stolen, in a little black satin pouch, um like a fancy cosmetic, or not cosmetic, but a little, that's what it was used for. And that, the little pouch, the little black satin pouch, um I picked up at Deacon's Closet at Christmas time, because they had this little thing for us homeless people, to go, and I can't remember what it actually was. You got some kind of coupons or something like that, and and they had this little Christmas shop, and you could go in and get Christmas gifts or get something for yourself. And most of it was like very small stuff, but I had found a little bracelet that I really liked, and I found that pouch, and actually there were two bracelets, and I'm trying to remember what they looked like because they were all of the pieces of jewelry. I don't wear jewelry, but I thought for the bracelets, I think I wore the one that was like beaded. I might have worn both of them, but that's beside the point. Again, they were in this little black satin pouch that was in my black backpack that was stolen from me. Um 2 weeks after receiving notification that I was had um, approved for housing. Um, and then what else? What else was in that little satin pouch was these two things that this girl who I thought to me it was my niece Abby, and I still don't think anybody can convince me that it wasn't. Um, um, so I held on to those two things, and like he had come up to me, Jim Morici had approached me like 2 weeks after the encounter at the van, and and said, "Hey, uh where's that unicorn thing?" And I said, "Why?" Because I need it. I want to give it to my daughter. I said, "No, I'm not giving it to you." The girl, I can't remember what name she was going by. And again, I'm thinking to myself that this is my niece, Abby, at the time, and I still am. And I said, "No, I'm not giving it to you." She gave it to me, and I have. Maybe I told him that I don't know what happened to it. I can't remember, but whatever. I had no intention of giving it to him. And then a few weeks later, I ran into him again, and he asked me again. I said, "I don't know," and then um, because as I had stated, if I ever ran into that girl again, I had every intention of giving it back to her. Um, because I felt like she was in a vulnerable state of mind at that time, and she was gonna like wake up one day and be like, "Where did I put where's my unicorn?" And that's what I felt like. And um, and so it was again, it was in there, but the reason that I'm mentioning this story within this other encompassing um story is that the metal, somehow when I looked it up, there was some kind of association with the metal. The way it looked, it said Olympics on it. I can't remember exactly what it said. And it must have said 1972 Olympics. And the person represented, it didn't have a name on the medal, but there was like a diver, a male diver, like swimming pool diving. And when I looked that information up, Mark Spitz's name was who came up. So to remember that medal, and still that's like, why does Mark Spitz keep coming up? Because I was 8 years old. I don't know. And so when I just pulled this photo up of Mark Spitz and Saddam Hussein, they look like they could be father and son, or younger pictures of Saddam Hussein look almost exactly like Mark Spitz. Um, and then to find the story, um, because I can't remember even why I started looking up the 19, oh, because I wanted to find further information about the politics at the time of the Watergate and what the CIA director who whose story is on one of these channels on cable or whatever. Um, so to find that Saddam Saddam Hussein has a likeness to Mark Spitz kind of draws a question in my mind, and then to realize and again bring to consciousness, bring to my real time awareness that Saddam Hussein and PLO, Yasser Arafat were opposing forces. Um, and then to throw in the whole civil rights movement and the Black Panther politics and Martin Luther King and that whole thing, and uh, it, it's just been, a really very much to realize. And again, I'm going to state here that I've never been a prejudiced person, but the race card has been thrown at me very, very frequently um, since Obama became president. Um, and actually, that started a little bit before then, when because now there's a connection to Colorado National Bank, because that's when the race card was first ever thrown at me, because I've had African American friends my whole life, and then we started hearing, well, just because you have African American friends doesn't make you not prejudiced, whatever. Okay. um and that is exactly the way that I feel. Keep your race card. I don't want to hear anymore about the race issue. I'm so fed up. um and then that takes me back into my experience as a third grade, second grade, or third and fourth grade student at Northwood Elementary School. So and I keep it, because, and I'm not talking about my children, because I say something like that and then they're um and this particular town, there's a lot of politics that have gotten swept under the rug, but and yet are surfacing again. And I think a lot of that has to do with the building, and it's like a osmotic surfacing of information where uh, all this stuff is never going to it's not going to stay under the rug. And um and the fact, now I'm starting to think, well, what do then these people think? They think if they off me or something, that it'll all finally go away? That and that's what I'm starting to feel like. And I've had no involvement in any organization whatsoever other than being hired by the FBI and going through the 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 week long orientation, and then not going back, and then someone stealing my employee badge, and the fact that the FBI might have sent a letter to Pulaski Highway where I was residing at the time, and Charlotte would have been one of those types of people who thinks, oh gosh, yeah, I'm just going to keep that, I'm not going to tell her what it is. She would have opened it, she would have read it, and like if they had sent notification and said, Miss Henderson, you have not returned to assignment at the FBI building, and we are going to need you to return the FBI badge. Now I know I'm implicating myself and opening myself up. Oh, she probably got the blah, 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 whatever. Um, um, I'm saying that Charlotte would have taken such a letter because Charlotte's anyway. So back to the disturbing likeness of Mark Spitz too, and that coin that came into my possession through who I truly believe is and was my niece Abby, who I other than this encounter, I have not had real time communication with. I've had very little communication with anybody in my Henderson family for a number of years, and that's including my own children. Although I don't consider my own biological children to be part of my Henderson family, even though my name is still Henderson. The But those three politics within itself, and the fact that that coin and the way things are in this town, and how things are going, and those politics of from my childhood seem to be really in play in my life right now. And other than me being a Christian, and stating all the time, doesn't matter what town I'm in or what block I'm walking down, or I'm still a Christian, and I don't use an alias, and I've never changed my name. Um, and I'm not going to. Christ Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and Jesus protects me, not anyone else. Because, so I have to ask myself, which I already see, like I said, the connections, and my niece Abby and her grandmother Marilyn Pulaski, and Maryland politics. And I don't know what exactly, but Marilyn Pulaski always had a bodyguard, and I can't remember what his name was, but this guy would always show up with her. And that's what we were told. Oh, that's her bodyguard, because Ron Pulaski Sr., who I think I saw one time, and this was many, many years ago, but he has a very close likeness to Joe Biden, from what I can remember. And then comes the Penske connection, and not within Trump politics. But again, it's just like I've been in the middle, or at the vortex of every political campaign, wondering what the heck is going on and why do I feel like at the vortex of this, like stuff swirling all around me. I'm not getting any kind of uh, a positive experience in my life suddenly um since what? Since 2000? Really, since my grandmother Betty died. It's really strange. So there had to been the political connections to my Nichols grandparents, and so it's like I'm this. I've been in the middle of something that I never knew that I was in the middle of, and have been used as a pawn in all these political, very huge political interests, and not knowing, not having any idea why, and not even being aware that I was being used as a pawn. But just knowing that, I always felt like what I talked about yesterday, like when I said to my older sister Sandy, I always feel like somebody that no matter where I am, like everybody knows something. Everybody that's in the room knows something I don't know. And my older sister Sandy's response, as I said yesterday, was very piranha like, is how she always came at me. And her response to me was, well, maybe they do, Dawn. And I was like, didn't know how to take that. Um, so it's like really seriously, the more I find, um, the more sort of disturbing everything gets. And the more apt I am of demanding to know where my biological children are. And within my own civil rights, I have a right. And within my own comprehension of what the civil rights is supposed to be about, and what the Bill of Rights and everything, that my children being taken from me was illegal in the first place. Um, at the time, it, I didn't realize. I didn't realize that I was being used in a pawn. Oh, and I didn't even mention the cartel connections that were that because that's included in politics. And so here I have been in the center of all these storms, and being moved and pushed about like, an identityless person, like if they're completely unimportant, and yet realizing and discovering that I was obviously very much more important than anybody wanted me to realize. All the people who were pushing me and my children around and wedging themselves in between me and my children, and all this stuff. Um it's it So I just wanted to bring to a conscious awareness, both for myself, my children, if they had the ability to sign on and listen to what I need to give my own biological children information about, because I have no idea what they're dealing with. I only know what I can hear, like when I tell somebody, that umbilical cord connection that you thought you could cut, it doesn't cut that easy. It's There's a visceral connection that shall not ever be cut. And even as I start to realize their biological fathers, the two who I the two fathers who I was very um being dedicated and loyal to, as far as them being the biological fathers of my biological children, and that being part of my Christian belief, um, that my loyalty to those two is is to those two men is waning back and forth, because there's things that I'm realizing about their involvements, and both of them very possibly being the just like every other male, it seems like that. In other words, men, I'm learning, are part of their practice within their existence, no matter what race, creed, or color or religion they are or claim to be. It seems like they are all part of this huge male network, even within the wars that they're fighting. This is what makes it all so very like, what for? Um, because they're all doing the same thing. They're all going out and impregnating, thinking they're claiming that that's why they're doing it. Oh, this is because, we got, and this guy wants to have a baby with this woman over here because there's got to be a cultural bond here and a political marriage here, and da 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 da. And and so both of my of the biological fathers of my biological children, I'm seeing, were more knowledgeable and involved in politics by way of either local or national, and Petrus more international, than I had realized. It just it, I'm undeniable in the information that I am connecting and putting together. Um, and so I want to I want to I'm going to continue to research the Watergate stuff, because I still want to assess or see what I can come up with in regard to an assessment of Richard Nixon's character, because what I'm finding isn't very, and that was the whole purpose of me looking at the Olympics today, and then to realize realize the connection of that coin and Jim Marici's claim to be a CIA agent. At the time, I didn't not believe him, but I took it with a grain of salt. And actually, I more believed him than not believed him. Um, because I could feel this sort of there's something more here than this homeless man who's, acting like a crazy, like he's, uh, and the interesting thing again about this town of Boulder might have been the giant political chocolate chip Toll House cookie on all the politicians and famous people's way up to Aspen. I'm going to end with that comment.